Here we go then. Here is the Marvel Legends retro card-backed Apocalypse in packet. Just arrived today, very exciting. It's big. That was the first thing I noticed. The real estate on the card back here is huge. Have I got a card back around? Something in packaging? I do. Here we go. Here's my Captain America, my anniversary, 20th anniversary Captain America. So you can see if I just sort of put, there you go, spin it that way around. You can put that on top there. You can see the difference in real estate on the card back, although in terms of blister pack they're largely the same size, but yeah, it's big, as well it should be, but there we go, we can see the figure in the blister pack, and because it's that traditional card backed blister pack design, we can see all the goodies that are in there. Looks like there's a couple of hands. Got some laser blasty things there. That's his hand cannon. I think there's a swappable hand cannon, if I remember correctly. Swappable head, the figure himself. So all on display to be seen. And then we've got this wonderful card back here with the very dynamic artwork. I think that's David Nakayama. I don't think it's Wiesenmeyer. I'm pretty sure it's Nakayama. Should have checked before I opened my mouth. So apologies to whichever of them I've misattributed it to. Ancient Evil. There we go. Yeah, lovely with the X-Men logo, the old school X-Men logo, the old school Marvel comics there. So the retro card-backed Apocalypse has definitely got a retro feel, and it's got that, you know, in hand, take you back to your childhood when you used to buy your figures from Toys R Us in these little blister packs, although obviously a lot heavier. Let's have a quick look at the back. We've got more logos, got the digital render picture just here, and then this picture here, I don't know what's going on there. It's just like a sky blue background with a black and white line drawing of Apocalypse. Is that normally what's on the back? But I don't know, I'm a little unimpressed with that, to be honest. Then a bit of blurb here. Marvel's Apocalypse. Look upon the future and tremble. He is Apocalypse, the world's most powerful mutant, and from the ashes of our world he will build a better one. And then that same blurb available in several different languages, all the legal malarkey there, and yeah, that's it. I mean, that's all there is to offer on a card-backed figure. Let's get him opened up. I'm going to get my finger in under there and peel the card off the back. Oh, it's like double layered. Oh, that's a bit tricky. Here we go, hang on. Oh, paperwork. So slide him out like so. Woo! So what we got here, let's have a look. We've got a couple of... Oh, double layer, look at that. So we've got his hand. Oh, I hate that noise. Hand one. Hand two. Swappable head. Oh, sellotape. It's sellotape, everybody. My nemesis. I did it. I made it past the sellotape with my chewed up fingers. Oh. So yeah, a couple of little, like, blasts there. And the figure himself. Come on, Apocalypse. Out you come, mate. Oh, he's packed in tight there. Oh, there we are. So Apocalypse. And then on this one, we've got another laser blasty thing. That looks like a fun one. Yeah, that looks like a fun one, doesn't it? A couple of his tubey things. There we go. Get that out there. And then his hand cannon there. Awesome. Right. And there we go. There is Apocalypse with all his goodies. Right, I'm going to go away and have a play, get him posed up, take some photos. If you've been around these parts before, you'll know the routine. And I'll come back in a couple of days to share some thoughts. So in real terms, I'm off. But for you watching this video, I'll be back in 3, 2, 1. And here he is, the Marvel Legends retro card-backed Apocalypse, now unpacked. It's been a couple of days since I've done the unboxing. It's just been a few seconds for you as you've just watched it, but for me it's been a few days. I've been away, I've been having a play, been posing him up, taking some photos, recorded my little short, although that was problematic because look at the size of the guy. He's like taking up the entire space of my light box. He's massive. He's a big old beefy boy, his Apocalypse. But I've been away, had a play. I'll let you in on a little secret. I've mostly been interacting the figure with my VHS, you know, the Marvel Legends X-Men animated series, the VHS specials, because one of the things I was particularly curious about was how he looked in the mix with those guys, how he integrated there in terms of shelf presence. So if you're new around these parts, just to let you know, my more detailed figure reviews follow a very simple structure I call the 3 A's. The first A is aesthetic. Let's have a bit of a conversation around how does Apocalypse look? How easy is he on the eye? Is he hitting the mark in terms of detail, texture, etc., etc.? Is the way he looks telling a bit of a story? Then the second A is articulation. Let's talk about how he feels, how he moves, how poseable he is. Is it hitting the mark in that respect? And then the third A is accessories and added value. What are all the extra goodies that Hasbro have thrown in with the figure, or not thrown in, as sometimes is the case, although luckily not with this guy, and take a look at how they integrate with the figure and what new elements those extra accessories, those added value pieces give. So there you go, there's the review. Let's not dilly-dally around, let's jump straight into it, and let's get started talking about Apocalypse's aesthetic. Okay then, so I've brought Apocalypse a little bit nearer to the camera so that we could take a bit of a closer look at the finer detail in the figure. And the first thing I tend to cover off when doing my reviews is the head sculpt. And I think when it comes to this Apocalypse in particular, the head sculpt is certainly one of the more striking and eye-catching elements to the figure, because that I'm really super happy with, really impressed with. That's just awesome. Now, one of the things I'm always looking for when it comes to head sculpts is that it's telling a bit of a story, that the narrative of the figure is being communicated through the facial expression and the features that we are seeing on the head sculpt. And I don't think anybody can deny that that is definitely telling a story there, just like this really gritted teeth, evil, super villain, nasty mastermind mutant guy. That was a random mix of words, wasn't it? But you get what I'm saying, like the teeth, you can see the gums in there, and the detail in the features to kind of really bring that gritted teeth growling to life. He just looks evil, doesn't he? He looks suitably evil. This isn't just the kind of standard Marvel Legends bland, expressionless kind of face sculpt thing that we've seen on some figures lately. This is telling a story. Look, he's like, ready for action, I'm evil. Do you know what I mean? There's a bit of a wash across the figure as well, which is really helping bring out the detail in the features on the face sculpt, the nose, the cheeks, the furrowed brow. Loving all of that. It really just, excellent stuff. You can see a bit of a wash across the teeth as well. And it just really selling I'm an ancient Egyptian mutant, the first mutant. I've been around for millions of years and I've had some shit. There's been a few sandstorms against this face, you know what I'm saying? He's just looking craggy and old and just the right kind of deformed. Yeah, really happy, really super pleased with the face sculpt, as you could probably tell. And then some of the other little finer details, like there's the paint apps are lovely, nice and neat. The kind of yellowy glow, just adding a little bit something to that villainous, evil look and feel to the face sculpt, which I'm really, really pleased about. Now, this is one of 2 head sculpts that have come with the figure. Normally, I'd keep the head sculpts until the accessory section, but I'm going to jump on to the other head now, because I think while we're talking about how fine detailed these face sculpts are, we should have a look at that one now. So here we go. Here's the second head sculpt. I'll not revisit it when I do the accessories section, but you can see once again the level of detail and the quality sculpt in the finer features are just equaled in this second head, basically. It's a bit more of a stoic, more serious, I'm evil scientist doing evil sciencey things. Like, this is masterminding while this is, getting into battle, which I like. I like the ability to be able to kind of give it 2 sort of vibes. So if he's sort of seriously strategizing and commanding his troops, we've got this one here. But if I'm getting him into a nice bit of combat, then I've got this one here. So that works. That's lovely. So even though it's a bit more of a plain facial expression, it's not quite as expressionless as we've encountered with Marvel Legends before. I can, again, the story, the narrative that is being told by the figure is present in the facial expression. It's got the same wash on it, although his chin's a little bit shinier by comparison to the other gritted teeth version. But the paint apps are equally as neat. The wash is bringing out the crags and creases and, you know, all the finer detail there. So yeah, the head sculpt's really eye-catching. Definitely a plus feature to this figure and standing out to me as something that I'm enjoying greatly. Moving down into the main body of the figure, the next couple of aspects of Apocalypse that catch the eye aesthetically are the size. You know, he's bulky. He's definitely a bulky boy. You can feel the weight on him. And he's got the bulk. You know, he's muscular and large and imposing, which is, you know, what you want from your Apocalypse. That's in line with the story of the character, the narrative that you might be looking to tell with your Apocalypse action figures. And then the colour scheme. The colour scheme is very unique, very striking, the purple and blue. It's clearly inspired by the X-Men animated series. There's no two ways about it. You know what I mean? But it's not cel-shaded. It's been released as a retro line figure and not a VHS animated series line figure. So expect a repaint, a cel-shaded repaint imminently, folks, in a VHS box. A little bit of cynical sarcasm coming out of me there, but it's true. I don't think I'm speaking out of turn there. So that's a shame. I mentioned before, I'll show a bit of a comparison later, but I mentioned before, I've had him in amongst my cel-shaded animated X-Men, Marvel Legends, you know, the recent purchases, my Wolverine, my Jubilee, Storm, Jean Grey, etc. And Morph. I've had him with Morph. And he works. Despite the absence of cel-shading, he certainly works. I'll do a little comparison shot in a bit. So yeah, the colour scheme and the blue elements on the colour scheme frame the figure up well, gives it balance. It's working, you know, with the blue gauntlets and the shoulder pads and the blue at the top and the blue boots framing up, and then his big blue Apocalypse A in the centre of his belt there. So yeah, it's all looking good, easy on the eye. One thing I do observe is that in terms of the texture, while there are some finer details, like you've got the kind of, you know, the vents and the grills in his armour, the musculature and his legs and arms with his little kind of muscular veins there, and you've got the some nice detail on the hand sculpts. So there is a bit of texture in there, and like you see on the boots and things, it lacks an aspect of depth. He's definitely got a bit of a sort of plasticky action figure sheen, a bit shiny, you know. So even though there's texture, it lacks a bit of depth, and especially when you've got this kind of very well sculpted, fine detail head sculpt with the nice wash across it, that is giving it depth. It stands out. It stands out how sort of plasticky action figure-y. I mean, I know it's made of plastic, so it's going to be plasticky, but the best way I can describe it is it lacks a bit of depth. There's texture there for sure, you know, in the hands and stuff, and so there is elements of texture. You know, look at these big bulging muscles on his legs, but it's not got depth. It could have done with something else, I don't know, a bit of something to make that look more metallic-y, I think. You know what I mean? And make the shine a bit more of a metallic shine rather than a plasticky shine. I don't know. I'm not entirely sure what I would have been looking for, but the textures lack depth. I don't know how else to describe it. And I've repeated it that many times now that I'm just going to move on. So yeah, aesthetically, there's a lot to like about Apocalypse. I mean, he looks suitably evil and menacing. The size and shape of the figure is imposing in the way that your mind's eye would imagine a big, you know, maniacal supervillain to be, and that's all good and working. The head sculpt is really top notch. I'm very, very impressed, and you know, it just goes to show what they can do at Marvel Legends. But the body is just a little bit too plasticky action figure. I thought maybe we'd moved a bit away from that. It needs a bit more texture. So there's the pros and cons. That's where I'm at with the aesthetic. That said, though, overall, I'm actually quite pleased. You know, even though I'm coming down a bit on the kind of plasticky, shiny nature of the figure, I'm largely quite pleased. So now let's have a bit of a chat about his articulation. How well does Apocalypse pose? Starting above the shoulders then, we've got the ball joint with the neck hinge, good range of motion, can look fairly up-ish, decent down, bit of tilt in there. Obviously this big neck piece is going to obstruct some of the movement that you're going to be trying to do, but you can get some decent left and right out of it, I suppose. Depends what you're trying to do with him. Moving down into the main body, there's no butterfly joint, but we have got the T going out like that, and then a swivel that goes up and down, obviously somewhat restricted by the shoulder pads. There's a swivel at the top of the bicep and tricep. Bit disappointed with just a single elbow joint there, and not a great deal of motion. That's as high as you'll get that. and a forward and back hinge on the hand, and a swivel in the wrist. In the main torso, there's a bit of ab crunch forward, not a great deal of back. That's okay, I suppose. Bit crunchy in there, I don't know if you could hear that. Then we've got the hip swivel. The hip line is below the belt, so when you do the hip swivel, you can see the belt moving because it's across the join. Then pretty standard groin joint there. We could do the splits. Apocalypse has got some Russian ballet about him. We've got the thigh swivel at the top of the leg there. A decent double knee. No boot swivel. And then the forward and back and side-to-side rocker on the feet. So he's not the best, but he's not the worst in terms of articulation. There has been a few super villainy style poses, you know, getting up to no good that I've tried to get him into that I haven't really been able to fully complete. The single elbow, for example, see here where I kind of really wanted that to bend all the way round and just have his hand sort of right in front of his face like he's doing an evil, I don't know what you call that, but like a, you know, maniacal dictator thing, but it's all right. It's decent. He's a half decent shelf piece. I don't know if he'd go the distance if you're a photographer and you're looking to do something more ambitious. I suppose that's where it's at. I don't know if that's something to do with the limitations. I'd have thought the larger size would have given them more space for more articulation engineering, but perhaps that's not the case. I mean, the single elbow thing is to do with the size of his arms, I suspect. I'm not sure why there's not a boot cut, although the design of the boots don't really lend themselves well to a boot cut, so perhaps that's an aesthetic choice. But yeah, not the best, not the worst, just kind of in the middle. Moving into the accessories now then, I've obviously already mentioned the alternative head sculpt, so I'm not going to spend a lot of time on that, but there's lots of other goodies with Apocalypse as well. The first notable item is these kind of pipe tubey things, which attach to the body of Apocalypse and kind of complete his aesthetic. You can see on the back of his belt here and on the back of his gauntlets where the tubes connect to. There's a right angle tube that I think is the one that goes into the back of the belt, like so. And then you kind of sort of curve it around and fit it into the gauntlet, like that. Same again on the other side. And there you have his tubes. I don't know what's going on in them. These are okay. I mean, they certainly add a little bit of flair and energy to the aesthetic of the figure. What I have found is that the gauntlet ones here keep popping out. Sometimes when I'm trying to get a little bit more ambitious with the way I'm posing them, they keep popping out. So maybe a little dab of the old Loctite needed in there. But yeah, again, the character in the animated series had these tubey pipey things pumping ancient mystical energy through his veins or whatever. I don't, has it been explained in lore as to what these are doing? Probably not. But yeah, they add to the aesthetic, certainly. From the front, there you go, you can see them there from the front. Yeah, you know, they add another layer. It's a bit more colour in there, but you can already see, I was mentioning about them popping out. It's starting to happen on this gauntlet just over here. Next, we've got a couple of swappable hands. These are clenched fists. For pounding X-Men, of course, for any unfortunate X-folk who get into within Apocalypse's arm's reach. So that's quite nice. Yeah, I love swappable hands. I like options. Certainly, these clenched fists work well with the kind of growling evil grimace head. Standard hand swap situation with the pegs, and then just pop them in like so. Ta-da! Clenched fists. Urgh. The next piece is a fun one. We've got his hand cannon. So any fans of the X-Men animated series will know that Apocalypse is a shape-shifty, metamorphizing guy who can, produce these big cannons and weapons in his arms. And so we've got a swappable one. Again, with the peg to go into the wrist kind of channel there. Word of warning for the wise, this confounded me actually at first. You need to remove the outer gauntlet piece like so in order to get the cannon on the arm. God, you would not believe the length of time it took me to figure that out. Far longer than it should have done. And then you've got a little slot at the bottom there to add his little mystical energy power evil scientist tube thing. And there you go, there's his hand cannon. And as an extra bit of flavour, the fine folks at Hasbro have provided us some little shooty laser blasty things. We've got a couple of little ones that pop into the smaller little channels at the side there. and then one big super blast that fits into the main there. That's pretty sweet. Nice looking. I love a little bit of something that's more dynamic and action focused, and yeah, that's pretty sweet. So I kind of like that. Although, once again, going back to the aesthetic, I suppose consistent with the rest of the figure, but it's got a kind of a cheap plasticky vibe about it again, which is a bit unfortunate. And here we go. Here's a tooled up Apocalypse taking some pot shots at some X-Men over here behind the camera. Yeah, there you go. And you can see it's it's got a lot of dynamic, got a lot of energy. I like stuff that you can use accessories wise that sells a bit of an action story for some, for a nice shelf display or for some photographs that I'm doing. And yeah, that's all adding up. So as far as the added value accessories goes, got quite a bit of stuff going on with Apocalypse. And yeah, it's well thought out. It's decent. The second head alone just goes to show what they are capable of over at Marvel Legends. But the swappable hands, the laser gun, yeah, all adding up. The only criticism is that these little tubey things keep popping out their slots. Yeah, so thumbs up on the accessories, Hasbro. And for a bit of a comparison, here is Apocalypse with the VHS animated series line Morph. And you can see there that even despite the cel shading on Morph, the Apocalypse works. He works in the animated series context, I feel. And here he is with the animated series Wolverine from the VHS line as well. The cel shading a little bit more prominent on... Oh, there we go. The evidence, folks. As I was saying before I was so rudely interrupted by the popping out tube there, the cel shading is a lot more prominent on Wolverine's figure, and I suppose the shiny plasticiness that I was criticising earlier stands out more when you can see that the Wolverine's uniform is more textured and more matte in style comparably. So that difference does stand out a little bit, but do you know what? When I was taking some photos the other day with a bit of lighting and whatnot, I was able to kind of mitigate it somewhat. But there you go. That's what it looks like. Make your own judgment. Here's Apocalypse with a mainline figure. I just went and grabbed another villain, basically, and Pyro caught my eye because he's a tube bro. So there's a bit of a comparison for you with a mainline figure, another mainline villain. And finally, while we're comparing Apocalypse to other mainline figures, here he is with a Rogue from the X-Men, and I've picked this one out because she is also a retro cardback figure. So here's two from the retro cardback series. So here he is. I've had to forego the turntable today because he's basically a bit too heavy for the turntable. My turntable's not strong enough. My little battery-powered turntable's not strong enough to turn this big boy around. So just a static shot to finish up, but this is how I've had him posed on the shelf. I wanted his hand cannon in there and the tubes and stuff. I like the open palm. It looks like he's being really villainous, and of course the gritted teeth, growling face sculpt's got to go for that one. Absolutely, it's by far the best of the two, and they're both pretty damn good. And with Apocalypse, it's the same as always, really, I suppose. It's all a question of what you're looking for from your figure. I'm quite happy with him. He's suitably big and beefy and imposing, and he stands towering above the X-Men on the shelf display in the manner in which I'd want him to, and there's a lot of added value for your money in terms of all the extra hands and laser blasters and cannons and tubes and head swaps and things, so that's all good for me. Would I have liked double elbow? Yes. Would I have liked his main body, his uniform, to look less plasticky and shiny? Yes. But the pluses are more in the column that they mitigate that for me. The head sculpt alone, just really impressed with the head sculpt. So, yeah, you'll have to consider what you want him for. I'm not sure he's right for folks who want to do some ambitious photography. The limits in his articulation and the fact that he is so plasticky and shiny. I mean, just look at how the light reflects off him. That might, influence your decision. But if you want to play with your toys and display your toys, then, yeah, you could do a hell of a lot worse than Apocalypse. And if you're a patient sort, there'll probably be a cel-shaded alternative version coming down the pipeline. 3 months from now? 6 months from now? Anyway, so there you go. So there we are. That wraps up my review of the Apocalypse figure. I hope you've enjoyed what you've seen here today. If you're not already subscribe to the channel, then please do take a moment to head down and click that button. It just takes you a second, but it means ever so much for me. And while you're down there, hit the like if you think I've been useful to you today. Hopefully, now, if you've been thinking about picking up an Apocalypse, then I've given you some thoughts to help you make your decision. So that's everything from me. Thanks very much, folks. I've been Chris from MoDXtra Games and Collectibles. Thank you so very much for watching, and I hope you have a great day. Ta-ra now.